Hello out there, everyone. We're back with episode 22.
22.
It's a great number. We're going to talk about...
I felt like I might have broken into song then, but it didn't follow through.
One day we will do a song for you. We'll do a singing episode. We want to talk about class today, taking it and taking it well. There's so many things to think about here.
We could go in a million and one directions.
This could be a half an hour episode. An hour.
But we're not going to go there, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've boiled it down to is a few things that have been really coming up for us very recently. Things and ideas and thoughts about what it is to take class. Because let's be honest, as dancers, it's a common ground for all of us. We've all taken class. A, it's how we got to where we are in the first place. B, it's the ongoing breeding ground for more of what we have to say. And the first thing that we want to talk about is something that I know I often say as I'm walking in, particularly to a new space, a new studio space with dancers I perhaps haven't had before. I invite them to leave their expectations at the door, both their expectations of themselves, like the pressures that they're walking in and they're putting on themselves, how they think they'll do in class that day, but also the expectations of whoever is taking the class, meaning if they have taken that class before, as in they've taken from that teacher, leave that memory at the door. Because sometimes what happens is that we have a preconceived notion then of what we think will happen in the space that day, which limits then our ability to experience anything else.
It can always change. We
just
never
leave
really
the labels.
know.
Just, quite literally unpeel those labels and expectations, leave them at the door.
Right. There's something that's really important to me, and it's warm-up. Warm-up is something that your body really needs to take you to the next steps in class. And I think sometimes a lot of people either get comfortable with the warm-up they think they know, or they just decide to kind of check out on warm-up. I'm really afraid for your well-being, because I'm afraid I'm going to ask you to do something later and you're not ready to do it because you haven't done the steps to get there and warm yourself up. And number two, it just drives me bananas why people kind of sometimes halfway do it, or they check out and maybe they don't actually know they're doing it. But I'm here to say, as a teacher or as a student, really be mindful, because there are a whole bunch of things that go into play here with doing the warm-up. You have to get your body ready to get to the next step. And if you want longevity as a dancer, warm-up plays a huge part in that. If you're injured, I don't love it when people are injured, but I love it when people are professional enough to say to me, hey, Christina, I hurt my side, and if you see me, kind of shortcutting that side stretch or anything in class today, I just want to let you know that I'm not marking it, but that my body it is not ready to do that yet, but I'm here because I want to be here and I want to get everything out of it that I can. So just know that, feel free to correct me, but I'm not going to be able to give you everything with that, sore or injured side to have. And that's professional.
But there's also a difference between that, which is a legitimate statement of injury, and a communication with the teacher or whoever's leading the room, of what you're managing. But coming up to the teacher and saying, I had a sniffle 3 days ago, and so I currently have my eyebrow hair or my elbow, skin. Hurts a little bit today. Be really mindful to respect yourself, and it kind of leads us into the next thing we wanted to say about to be respectful of yourself, and know that there is a time for communicating that there's something going on in your body that you feel is going to inhibit your ability to take class at your best, and then there are times when we just look for excuses.
Any teacher can tell if you're giving your best when you're tired, because let's face it, by the end of any class, if you've really given your max, your legs could be, giving out, or your arms could be really tired. And there's a different energy in someone who's still working full out, who's giving you the tired best version, than someone who's just checking out, because that's very different. The other thing also with taking class is when people are going across the floor. Now, I know lots of times I say, let's line up in this certain way. Now, I like to line up so that there's the maximum amount of space on the floor, so that the very first person starts back by the wall or back to one side. Now, then it gets into this part where going across the floor, the teacher might say, let's go every 8 counts, or let's go every 4 counts, which is great. But there are people who just don't step up and go. Now, I always try to educate people in my class that when they do that, when there's absolutely an empty space to go and nobody steps up, there are teachers in this world who will kick you out of the class and just nicely say, hey, you're not paying attention. get out. And you don't want to be that dancer. You don't want to be called out for not paying attention. So number one is pay attention, and when there's a spot for you, step up and go. And if you're doing 3 at a time and you're in separate lines, if there are 400 people in the front line and none in the back, spread out. Go in the back, go in the middle. Like, and be aware.
I think it's just about what you said about pay attention. Everything that we've said in these first few minutes could boil down to pay attention. Pay attention to your body in warm-up. Pay attention to the stories you're bringing in your head in class. Pay attention to how the choreographer or teacher is running the room and what they're asking of you. Don't assume that you already know what's going to happen. Be listening. Be listening with your ears, and let that filter into your mind and let that play itself out in your body, so that what you're bringing, that's it. Use your powers of observation in the time that you know, if you're in a new class, that there obviously there'll be other people in class who take that class all the time. If it's new for you, observe the etiquette of the room and observe how the space is respected. And that speaks a lot to how you're respecting the craft of what we do.
Absolutely.
But you're also respecting yourself and your contribution, but then also respecting the teacher that's leading the room.
Right.
And the next thing we want to talk about is being then willing to take class, not just on the times that we take it to feel good, but also in the times where we've taken it and it turns to be it's more of a tough training moment.
We've all been there.
We all have, but I find that sometimes there's that willingness or wish to avoid the tough moments and just stay in that positive feeling. I'm taking class because it feeds my soul. Dance always feeds the soul, dance always feeds the soul. But sometimes that connection that we're looking for, that hit of the good feeling that we're looking for, is going to come via way of learning something new, or pushing through to the edges and maybe even outside of your comfort zone. That's necessarily uncomfortable. So it's, there'll be days where you're like, that was a tough day for me. It was a tough day emotionally or mentally or physically. And there's still plenty to feel good about, but you just might not get that positive hit in the moment. It might be following. You'll see some of the progress you've made. So being willing to let class be that learning experience, and not just, not solely an affirming experience in the moment. It might be something that's taking you forward rather than just an instant gratification moment right in that time there.
Right, because, none of us like to necessarily do the things that we're not excited about. Like you must find a way to get around that, and by staying in it, by sticking with it, it's only going to teach you to be really on your game, and learn how to fit in and learn how to make it work and make it happen for you. So
because in life
you have to do it.
Because in life we have to deal with more than just the things we want to deal with. In life as a dancer, you're going to have to be able to process circumstances, opportunities, experiences that are more than just the ones we put on our wish list. I mean, we've got vision boards and we have wish lists. Personally, we have those, but it doesn't mean that we don't come up against situations that are less than the ones we have in our wildest dreams. And you need to know how to process those ones too. And that also takes practice. And once you're in the realm, I think, that one of the final things that we want to say today is, once you're in the realm of working as a professional, or you've graduated from what would be your more regular training regime, whether that's being part of a studio space or being part of a course or a college or a degree or some kind of certification, you're not finished. You're not finished your training. Class is an ongoing experience there to feed you, body, mind, soul, like we've said, but also to grow you, which can feel like a more, like we said, that sometimes can feel like a more of a push for you to step into those moments, rather than just a lovely indulgence of dance feeling great. And there's plenty to be gained from that too. But just because we were talking earlier about the Olympic athlete, just because an Olympic athlete,
I got a gold medal,
has been chosen. That's right. Or even just has been chosen for the team. They don't go, check made out. It. That's all I need to do now.
I'm going to take a break.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
And yet there is this, we can see that, and people often want to relate. I find a lot of people wanting to relate dances to athletes, and what I respect about that is what I enjoy about that is the clear respect and the acknowledgement of how in tune with our bodies and the level of investment, determination, drive, discipline that's common. It's also an art form. It's also artistic, so that differentiates it necessarily a little bit. But there are definitely parallels to be drawn. But there's also a parallel to be drawn from We don't stop
They don't
taking
quit.
class.
You never quit.
We've actually never stopped growing. At every stage of your dance life, there'll be something more for you to tune into, something to push your mind in a different direction. You'll fall in love with a different way of moving. Because in life, there'll be plenty of dance times and times in general that don't feel good. And that's what we train for. And how we've shown up in class, the discipline, like you were saying, the respect, the powers of observation, the paying attention, the showing up, the leaving of the expectations at the door, and our willingness to take all of that whole self stuff in is generally how we show up in every other opportunity. Usually what we've practiced is what we bring through when we're really, when it's really called for. So we kind of want to make sure it's...
practice it in class.
We kind of want to make sure that what we practice, we're happy to have.
And it's all worth it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Enjoy class. Take more. Okay, bye.